One of the things that always comes up that's really important to understand as it relates to keynote speakers, we spend a lot of time thinking about this, because it's not a matter of getting somebody up here that can just entertain you. More importantly, it's to get someone up here that gives you some insight as to how things are and some situational awareness that will, in fact, in some form or fashion, affect your work. And of course, today we have two of those individuals that are here with us, and that's Natalie Crawford and Elliot Pullum. Now, in Natalie's case, it's not just her experience or her recognition. It's the fact that she's been able to give 100% to the community at large for the benefit of all. And almost every, I could probably ask everybody that has touched, Natalie has touched in here, and many of the hands would come up. Because over the years, it's not a matter of her participation, it's a matter of her education and mentoring that she's done for so many. And as General Rosenberg says, oftentimes she's referred to as the mother of all Air Force generals. And that's not just trivial in its sense, because it truly is in her ability to educate as well as ensure the facilitation of the research and things that go on. And as I say, she's received many awards, and you've seen some of those in your brochure, but I think it's important to outline a couple of them. One, of course, she was a RAND Project, she was a director, vice president and director of the RAND Project Air Force from 1997 to 2006. Now, most of you probably don't know what went on in that particular project. But if you look at the specifics that were laid out for the Air Force across the board, not just space, but every aspect of the Air Force, you can see where those footprints are still exist and moving things forward and having an impact on how the Air Force does its business today. And though she doesn't grab the limelight all the time, she's one of these individuals that's always there, providing that insight, providing that reference that's so critical to all of us being able to put the things together that need to be done to keep our eye on the ball. So it's this great honor that I have the opportunity to introduce Miss Natalie Crawford.
Thank you. So anyway, the reason for that is that, how many of you know what that's the theme song from? Yeah, that was about 30 years ago. So Apple is all proud because they rolled out the watch yesterday. Well, Dick Tracy's been wearing that watch for 60 or 70 years. So we've just been waiting on these guys to produce it. How many of you have read the book Longitude? You know, it's no wonder that the British Navy thought the world was flat, right, wherever you are out there, because the ships would sail out, and you'd watch them and watch them and watch them, and they'd disappear. So there must be an edge. What we didn't realize was we had no way to measure longitude. But that occurred because of two things: a big prize that was put out by the Royal Navy challenging somebody to find a way to measure longitude, and a brilliant master carpenter who built the first device out of wood and was posthumously awarded the prize because his son fought for it after his dad's death. You must read the book, it's fabulous. There's a little bit of connection between, well, they can hear me. Turn up your hearing aid. Kirk! Anyway, you should read the book because it's a short book. It's a wonderful history and something that I think we all benefit from. So I thought about this last night. I didn't go to the do. I went to my room and rested and thought about what I wanted to say to you people. So what is SSA all about? I feel very privileged to have been associated with this community for a number of years. Thank you to all of the people who got me here today. They didn't drag me screaming, but I've never been to this meeting before. With luck, maybe I will be again, but this is the first time I've been at this meeting. I think it's very important that there is a policy section to the meeting. I regret that I missed the classified session, but I think the policy portion of the meeting is very important. By the way, is Bob Fugate here? Bob, I just know I could find you out there, and I just want to say hello. Had nothing to do with what I said previously, but I just wanted to say. So another thing to think, another analogy to SSA is air traffic control. When you pull up on the website to look to see what the airline traffic looks like any time during the day, any day of the year, you just see all of this, because it's, of course, the scale of the map is small, but it's pretty crowded up there. Well, in a way, SSA is sort of those ATC radars or something, whatever it'll end up being, that give the air traffic management people situational awareness so they can direct traffic to the safest possible route and sometimes the most gas economical route. How many of you read the book Blind Man's Bluff? So submarine warfare during World War II. That was another more or less extreme form of situational awareness. The space was under the water, but nevertheless very important. We didn't know what was there. We needed to know what was there. We needed to find it before it found us and deal with it. That's part of what space situational awareness is too. The health of our own, and I'm going to use the word our today, collective. That is not a synonym for the United States of America. It is for everybody. It's for everybody. All countries and all segments, But anyway, so this SSA is got the word space in it, but it's not a unique need or requirement to conduct some kind of business in the world. That thing's right in my face. Maybe it looks better that way, I don't know. So, what do we know? We know that the world is reliant on space for everything, every day. It's reliant on space in ways that we don't even know. Maybe that's good, but the thing we must know is that we're reliant on it. To me, in a way, that's a form of deterrence, because who in their right mind would take down some of those critically important systems that affect every country, everybody in the whole world? The good guys and the bad guys got a pretty good idea of what's up there and what it does, their own and ours for that matter. Remember, too, that the Corona program put the first intelligence satellite on orbit in 1964, something like that. And you know what? It took 13 tries to get that thing up there. There were 12 failed launches. And on the 13th one, they got a satellite in orbit. That's a long time ago, 50 years ago. The eyes were born that day for surveillance and intelligence collection, and it's led us to where we are today. Over 30 years ago, and I'm not quite sure, Rosie, what the exact year was, but GPS kind of got up there about 30 years ago. The ability to know where we are and to have an exquisite sense of timing, which, by the way, is still undervalued in the world today, I believe. People don't recognize it. It isn't just where you are. Time is a critically important dimension that GPS provides to us. Satellite communications. Well, I don't know when the first one of those went up, but that's a huge benefit to everybody there is. I think about, there's this famous picture, Kirk, there's this famous picture of the warrior in Africa, standing beside this lone tree talking on a cell phone. That was an ad for somebody like Motorola or somebody here a few years ago. But, you know, it's ubiquitous. It's everywhere. It's absolutely everywhere. What would we do without it? Maybe life would be simpler. I don't know, but I don't know how it would be simpler. The free world today, all of it, potential and real adversaries use it all today as well. A difference is that the investment on which the rest of the world stands to use this kind of capability is small, trivial by comparison to the investment. And this is not bragging, it just is a fact. The United States of America has invested trillions, trillions, and trillions of dollars to develop the technology and achieve these capabilities. The entry price for others, and that's okay, it's a free world, is low by comparison, small by comparison. So in a way, the United States has underwritten a lot of this capability. We have also, allies and others have contributed to this in the bigger picture, and again, this is not a USA-centric thing I'm trying to talk to about, but it's a fact. The initial investment was made. We can't prevent bad people from doing bad things with these good capabilities, but what we need to be able to do is to anticipate that use. And anticipation is part of what SSA is all about, anticipation. Radar was being developed well before it was absolutely desperately needed in World War II when London was being bombed out of existence. Thank heaven there was somebody doing basic research or applied research or something, and the radar systems could be called forward, actually operationalized and employed to help the British and others. No offense to shoot down the German airplanes and the V-2 rockets that were shelling London. SSA is today's Corona satellite. SSA is today's radar. SSA is, as the lady from the UK said yesterday, it's Whittle's jet engine. That's what SSA is today. The Air Force, through AFRL, has made significant investments, not to ignore the important contributions that have come through Senator Inouye over the years, to the installation here on Maui. That installation is not here because Maui is a beautiful place. That has absolutely nothing to do with it. It's here because of the geographic location of Maui that gives those systems that are at the top of the mountain the ability to see farther and lower than they could see any place else on Earth, and be able to integrate that information into the rest of a surveillance network that's worldwide. Very, very important. Also important, and mentioned by General Hyten the other day, was this MOU, and he did say we don't like to do MOUs, but it's okay to do MOUs or MOAs for this. He did say that. You guys heard that, right? Oh, no, you weren't here that day. So anyway, but he did say that. But anyway, an MOU, MOA between Air Force Space Command, the NRO, and AFRL. And it's a no kidding, real live, it is binding agreement, which will only take the capabilities that exist here to a greater level of capability and competence in the years to come. Extremely important. It is a singular link, this link in the chain that you have right here at AMOS. So when we look up in the sky during the day or at night, we don't see the satellites. I mean, we don't see the satellites, but they're there. We don't see the space debris, but it's there. But if you have one of those great kind of, looks like time-lapse photography where you see the Earth and you see all this stuff collecting, you see the debris, you see the satellites and everything, it looks kind of crowded up there. It is a big sky, I'll give you that, but you know it's not so big that something bad can't happen. The challenge with space debris to any satellite, to the space station, to any satellite-based system is not trivial. So it's important for us to know, for us, the system, to know where those dangerous objects are, those debris objects are. It's also important to be able to have some, I don't know what word to use, policing of the creation of these things. Space debris, space junk is just as bad as somebody taking a bullet and firing at something because of the speeds with which they are traveling, and also having to maneuver large objects like the space station in order to get it out of the way of something that could create tremendous damage to it. I think they call that conjunction. I don't know what conjunction means. I think that's the word but or and or something. What is, anyway, what do I know? You can tell I don't know anything about this stuff. But anyway, it's really, really important. So that part of the tracking is extremely important. It may not be sexy to some people, but it's really, really important. You want to know where your things are. You want to know where other people's equipment is. You want to know if it's where it's supposed to be. If it's not, when did it move? Do you have a constant? Do you have a movie of it? You want to know why it moved. Is there something close to it that wasn't there yesterday or last week? If there is, who owns it? Can you tell? Do you have custody? Like in CSI, chain of evidence? Do you watch things be launched and go into orbit, checked out and go into operation? This is really, it's forensics. It's partly forensics, extremely, extremely critical. We have to have a way to manage the inventory, to manage the equipment on orbit, but never to forget that perhaps the most vulnerable part of our space segment is not in the air, it's on the ground. A lot easier to take out a switch than it is to take out a satellite. So, just so you know, I know you know this, it's not all in the air. There's a lot on the ground that matters. This is not an enemy like that we look at, although I don't know about these people that we're looking at in the world today. It's very scary to me. I listened to what the gentleman, I didn't understand the Hawaiian, but the blessing, very important. There are bad people out there who wish none of us any goodwill. But anyway, remember, when we don't think about the air traffic control picture, we don't put a lot of time in on it, but think about 9/11. That picture did provide intel because it's constant surveillance. It's a surveillance picture. It did provide intel so they could see at least where some airplanes were flying off course. They weren't headed to where they were supposed to be. They were able to tag, pick up, and divert how many hundreds of aircraft all over the world, turn some of them back to where they started, and put some of them down to the closest airfield where they could. That wasn't SSA, but that's the way we want to, that is an example of where that kind of global situational awareness is applied to an important problem that you didn't even think about. You didn't even think about it. Of course, we didn't anticipate 9/11, did we? Sadly. But anyway, people talk about space being crowded. I know it is the big sky theory. It is crowded, but we can't kind of relate to that. As mere mortals down here, we can't relate to that. Distances are big, but they're not infinite. LEO is particularly busy. A lot of our most important satellite systems are in LEO. And if something bad happens in LEO, this is not good for the security of the globe. Certainly not good for the security of the United States. So the ability to deal with space debris in LEO and also to know what's happening with respect to the population in LEO, the satellite population, is really, really, really important. I know you know that. But that's one of the places that it's closer than GEO, so people think of GEO as being the harder, and in some ways it is, but nevertheless, when you think about importance, it's a function of both what and what the systems are doing and the distance from which they're having to do it. But LEO is a particularly vulnerable part of space because of the important systems that are there. A lot of debris in LEO would be a bad thing. SSA is really critical in that area. The let's see, I'm sorry. I really thought about this, just so you don't think I threw things down on a piece of paper. Do our satellites have new neighbors? Do we know where they came from? Do we know who owns them? Do we know what they're doing? This is part of SSA, and this is part of what the JSPOC is supposed to do eventually, to be able to do that. How does this get analyzed, the data that's collected? General Hyten talked about data a lot, and he's absolutely right. You can't do anything without data. This isn't a philosophy essay. You got to have data and be able to understand, analyze it, and know what it's telling you. We have to do it quickly. We have to assess it. We have to assess it as confidently and credibly as possible in order to provide alerts. Those alerts go from 14th Air Force, they would here in the United States of America, back to the commander of STRATCOM under those circumstances to decide on courses of action and how to respond. Gosh, there may already been some of those things happen. We just don't know about it. Attribution will be important. The thing that caused the alert to be generated, where did it come from? What are the courses of action that seem most reasonable and prudent? How do we communicate that, not only to somebody that might make a I'm going to use the word warfighting, but I don't know what other word to use, response, but also to the business community, to the banking industry. There has to be an alert network that goes out and provides information. So, for example, let's say GPS satellites were under attack. Attack being soft or hard. There are a lot of people who need to know that, and they're not all the military, not only the military. So there has to be an alert network, which would be part of STRATCOM's responsibility. Speed is different. The dimensions of speed are different for things on orbit than they are for things in the air. You can't just turn on a dime. It takes time to turn things. It takes time to move things. It takes fuel to move things. So you've got a satellite, and it's got this much fuel on it. Well, you've got to really be parsimonious about and clever about, thoughtful about how many times you decide to maneuver something, because pretty soon you're out of fuel, and then you're there you are. You can't do anything about it. So I think that, and I know some of you in the audience undoubtedly are in the business of analyzing those kinds of things, making suggestions about fuel fraction. We say that in airplanes, but basically that's what it is on a satellite. So you can achieve the kind of capability that you desire and require. Not a trivial thing, but something that really is important to do. And I'm hoping enough people do that or are asked to do that. General Hyten mentioned the words command and control the other day. That was the only time the words command and control were mentioned. So what do you do with SSA information? What do you do with it? So they collect all this, they analyze all this, and then somebody, like the commander of 14th Air Force, passed forward to U.S. STRATCOM, has got to decide what to do about it. But somebody has got to do commanding and controlling as identifying, does something have to be moved? Do you have to go after something? It's like, I think about things in terms of aircraft because that's how I grew up. He mentioned the Air Operations Center, Hyten did. And that's the idea that the JSPOC is supposed to be like that, but only for space, but so you see all the players, you make the assessment, You identify courses of action and identify what moves have to take place. Literally, moves have to take place. What if it's a Canadian satellite? This is the part I don't know. I don't think there's a concept of operations for this. What if it's a German satellite? What if it's an Australian satellite? How does that get worked out? It can't be a unilateral decision. It can't be unilateral. It would have to be a combined decision. Non-trivial, we're not there yet, but it's one of the most important parts of SSA. It really, truly is, and we are not there yet. The JSPOC is supposed to be a central part of this, but it's not there yet. Indications of warning. The JSPOC can provide indications and warning. So let me give you an example of, let's take GPS. What might the very first indication be that somebody's fiddling with the GPS? I'm the component commander, and I've got airplanes flying around, shooting guns, dropping bombs, whatever they're doing. What's the first piece of evidence that the JSPOC might have if there were communications that GPS is not working in that part of the world? The bombs aren't hitting their targets. So the person that's the commander has got to be able to call somebody and say, I don't know what's going on up there, but my JDAMs are all missing by a mile. Something's wrong. So SSA isn't all from something on orbit talking to something on the ground. It could be the component commander who's giving feedback to the system, saying there is a problem with capability that's supposed to be delivered to me. It's not being delivered. What's wrong? That's another part of the network that needs to be integrated. The actionable recommendations. Credible, timely, actionable recommendations. And it has to happen quickly enough, and I don't know what that means, that you can avert whatever appears to be developing, or maybe what's already happened, how to respond to what's already happened. If we see collectively something materializing that looks like it could have a really bad outcome, is there a way to deter that through space? And I don't mean by having something collide with something, but what is the deterrence option? What's the option that lets you deal with a situation, modify it, mold it, redirect it to something that's less onerous than it might have otherwise been? What allows you to persist over time in order to accomplish the objectives that you have? It's a complicated problem. It's not simple. It's complicated. But there are all kinds of elements to the decisions that need to come out of SSA. It is the starred problem at the end of the chapter. For those of you old enough to have used textbooks that had starred problems at the end of the chapter, very complicated. But that doesn't mean that we have to take forever to figure it out, which is the way it seems, like we're taking forever to figure it out. But on the other hand, you can do it too fast. If you want it bad, you get it bad. Or as my husband used to say, you cannot make radishes grow faster by pulling on the leaves. So you can keep that one if you wish. So I'm not a card-carrying SSA person. I am a card-carrying warrior for SSA. I believe in it. I believe in the importance of it. I understand the complexity of it, or rather, I understand it is complex. I understand that we've got a ways to go, but General Hyten read the policy to us the other day. It's pretty clear to me. So with all due respect to the people who then followed, who talked about, no offense, how hard this is, how hard that is, well, get over it. Just do something. I mean, seriously, there has to be a point at which somebody has to just do something. And maybe he will. Who knows? And with any luck, you won't hear about it, because you shouldn't. You shouldn't hear about it, but just do something. So tomorrow is the anniversary of 9/11. I will be on an airplane tomorrow. I have been on an airplane every year on that day, on purpose. It is my version of in your face, USOBs. I don't care who you are. In your face. In your face. I was in the Pentagon that day, on the side of the Pentagon that I think they may have been aiming for but missed terribly. I was on the E-ring on the 9th corridor. If they'd have taken that out, they would have taken every part of the leadership of the Department of Defense out. But somehow they missed, and I'm very sad for the people that were there in the part that was impacted. However, also, that part had just been renovated. As we were talking last night, it had only been open for a relatively short period of time. All the people had not moved in yet, but it was stronger than it had been before they worked on it. So the number of casualties would have been much greater. So as bad as it was fortunate it wasn't another part of the building. But we should never forget this. It's kind of one of those Pearl Harbor things. I'm serious. I mean, the people from France and Germany and England who are here, certainly your grandparents, your history books tell you Germany, about what happened during World War II. And I can't imagine this is the closest thing to living through something like that in the continental United States since the Civil War. Unbelievable. We don't want that to ever happen again. To the extent that SSA is a tool that will enable us to better assess situations and head off, prevent, or whatever, and then prevail any kind of terrible act that somebody might be wanting to perpetrate on any part of the good part of the global community, then we ought to give it our all. So I haven't said anything profound, except in your face. You loved that part, didn't you? You liked 2001, you liked the music, right? So anyway, thank you for having me. I care desperately and deeply about what you do. I am not just saying that. I don't just say things like that. I have fought for you, and some of you know that. I have fought for you. I have fought for this location. And not because I was so good. Maybe it was just because I was at the right place at the right time. But I will continue to support it. I will do whatever I can to continue that. And thank you for your patience and endurance. Thanks for having me.
We have time for a few questions. I don't know if we have any that have been passed in yet. One of the questions I have for you, Natalie, since you've had the opportunity to view this over time, is your confidence that many of these issues are now being looked at sufficiently to cause some progress, if obviously funding and other things don't inhibit it?
I think they are, and I think that probably one of the most significant things is the memorandum of agreement, or whatever it's called, between the NRO, Space Command, and the AFRL. That is really, really important for this location in particular, because for so many years, as you all know, congressional ads were the fuel for this place, and it was known that they would eventually go away no matter what. But it is a community that there are interested parties at all three of those locations, and they are all together. General Hyten mentioned this the other day. I think that is critical. I think that's the most critical part. The changes the improvements that have occurred here that AFRL has funded, over the last few years are significant. We got lots of eyes up there looking, and we haven't had it that good for a while. We have new other things up there. And this is a good thing. And Silver Spur is alive and well. We're very aware of whatever that's called. We care about the environment. But I think that, I don't know, you two guys down here, Bob and Dave, I don't know if you agree, but I do think that's significant. The memorandum of agreement or understanding and the investments that AFRL has made over the last few years. Yes, that's my answer.
What ought to be the role of NASA and the grand challenge on debris and remediation and its association with the SSA and the work that's been going on in the Air Force?
Well, NASA should be a partner. I mean, they should be a partner. Whatever they're doing, it's just, I mean, so, you know, talking to each other is hard no matter who you are, right? We don't do that real well. So NASA should be talking to the Air Force should be talking to NASA. So maybe it should be Air Force Space Command, NRO, AFRL, and NASA. NASA won't put money in, probably. No offense to whoever from NASA's out there that wrote the question. But but nevertheless, it is it easily is part of the answer. Okay.
One last question. How do you see whether or not you believe that things are in place to start to address the challenges of the next war, whatever that might be? I mean, these pieces.
What war? You mean, I'm going to say this with all due respect, the barbarians that we got to go against over where they're overdoing what they're doing? Well, we need a lot of surveillance to find those people. That's not what you're asking me, but that's the next one. I mean, how do you think we're finding these people? Surveillance by space-based systems, some ground-based systems too. I don't know what the next war is. I'm not going to make up a boogeyman. I think it's a community thing. It truly is a community thing, built on trust, investment, and credibility. And so we kind of all got to do it together. There are competing interests, I realize that, but we have to do it together. One person, one country alone can't do it. So I'm glad all of the people are here from all the different countries. I think that's wonderful, really wonderful. I didn't know there was someone here from China till this morning, so where is the China person? No, seriously, is there somebody here from China? Somebody said that.
There he is right out there.
Glad you're here. Thank you all, and I'm honored to have been here. I've enjoyed it, and it was good to see old friends and meet some new people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Natalie. I'll carry that on.